Welcome to the HMO Property Show. By investors, for investors. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a new landlord, or just curious about property investing, this is the podcast for you. Sponsored by the Co-Living Collective, your trusted partner in creating vibrant and sustainable shared living experiences. Visit us at colivingcollective.com.au to learn more.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show on our first show of 2025. I took an extended break with the family, went over the Gold Coast, did a bit of Byron Bay, and then took a little bit of time off to move house when I got back. But we are back, and today's guest is joining me from Victoria. It's Mr. Vincent Holthaus. Vincent, how's it going, brother?
Good. Thanks for having me on, Neil.
Welcome, mate.
Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
holding the space. Appreciate it.
I've been following you for a while on social media.
Yeah.
And I've seen you hustling away.
Yeah.
Predominantly doing the rent-to-rent stuff over in Melbourne, Victoria. So it'd be good to find out a little bit more about you, mate. Who's Vincent? How did he get into this? And what do the rent-to-rents look like in Melbourne? And then what's the future look like for you as well? So,
all right.
So whereabouts in Victoria are you based?
I'm in the eastern suburbs, Melbourne.
Eastern, cool.
Yeah.
Born there?
Yeah.
Born up there?
Born here. Yeah. So 33 now, and I've been in the same area for the last 33 years, which helps a lot because they talk about being an area expert and how important that is. But I could tell you 4 ways to get to the local shops. You know what I mean? It's just like how to go down the right street and where it is. And it translates very easily into rooms, you know, what sort of demographic you'll be getting, what sort of rent you're going to get, what stuff they care about, what stuff they don't. A lot of people get hung up on that stuff and they put together what they think they'd be happy with. And that's inaccurate. It's like charging you prices based on how thick your wallet is rather than what the people actually want to pay. It's a transition there. So working in this space for a long time, I know what the people here want and generally what sells in these spaces.
Beautiful.
So the area expert thing is helpful.
And what were you doing before you were in real estate? Well, 33-year-old, so left school. Different thing, got into real estate, or have you been in real estate since you left school?
So I've got a long story. Basically, going through school, I was diagnosed with ADHD at a pretty young age. I didn't work too well in regular conventional schooling. So I left the first primary school I was at, went to the second one, went to get hearing tests to find out why I wasn't taking the information in. And it really what it meant was that I went through a lot of my schooling thinking that I was just stupid the whole time because I couldn't really reach the teachers and I wasn't interested. I was disinterested. After that, I got into the wrong crowds or caught up in a whole lot of drugs and things like that and reached my dark night of the soul when I was in my early 20s. So I'm 33 now. I was about 22, 23, almost a decade ago. 2016 is when I had that and went off to a rehabilitation and came back and had to start from scratch. The ADHD is one thing that I think really helps with entrepreneurs because what it meant was that I was hyper focused on the things that I wanted to do. I was very creative and I could put together ideas in ways that people couldn't. So I'd do graffiti when I was younger, but it changed into being able to put together deals and systems and structures in business. And it also meant that if I didn't want to do something, I just wouldn't do it. And I was very fast to change, which is good in business if things weren't working. So this trauma that I carried through my life translated really, really well into business, particularly working for myself and being in a creative space, building business systems and the sort of focus, the unreasonable focus that it takes to be an expert in something. Where it consumes you, you're up at night thinking about different ways to put together systems, different ways to do things. And that was sort of my superpower there. But after my teens, when I got sober and got away from the wrong crowds, I went into conventional work and the same thing had happened with my schooling. I wasn't really adapted well for it. And I had this gnawing feeling, like the same that I went through in school, this gnawing feeling that there was something more, I wanted to be doing something else. And that served me because it meant that I had to find a business that I could do. I think that a lot of people get stuck in comfort, right? Where it's good enough that it pays the bills. It's not aligned with them. It's not their passion. It's not their purpose. But it would almost be a little bit better if it was just a little bit worse for them, because then they'd actually have the kick in the butt that they need to go and do something with their lives.
I
And
think
a lot of people get
Tony
stuck.
Robbins talks about this a lot, right? Tony Robbins calls
Yeah.
it the middle class comfort space, where, like, exactly like you said, mate, they're comfortable. They don't particularly want to invest because they earn good money, and if they earn less, it might force them forward. So, sorry to jump in there, mate. Please continue.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things. You change when it gets painful enough that you want to change. It's a key trigger for weight loss, anything, getting away from friends, getting away from an abusive relationship or whatever is going on. It needs to be painful enough that you can move. And I suppose I was lucky that I didn't have that. I suppose I was lucky that I had that really gnawing pain in conventional schooling and conventional work, that it just wasn't an option. I remember driving up to my job, and I'd go to turn around to turn into the driveway for the work, and I'd just drive straight home.
What was the job? What were you doing?
I was working at National Tiles in sales. So this was when I was trying to conform, and I had this idea of what a man needed to be and what someone who was helpful needed to be. And I just walk around. On the days I did go, I'd walk around the showroom and just say, "Hey, don't you guys want to do something else? Isn't there something more that we could be doing?" And people would be like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I'm happy here. You know, I've got a kid at home. I need to make this wage here. You know, maybe we could have a conversation about it." But basically, they just weren't on that same wavelength, you know? So I spent time looking online, trying to find side hustles. I remember standing in one of those kiosks. I was selling salt lamps, and I was writing down different things I could do. I was like, maybe I could get a TRX roll. What I'll do is I'll import them, and I'll start selling those. And I walked through the shopping center after my day's work, and I stopped at a candle kiosk, and I said, "Hey, if I buy these through you, can you give me a discount, and I'll just set up my own booth?" And then I engaged in email communications with this guy and almost started selling these candles. He was at Christmas time. You see all those stalls that come up in shopping centers. And then I came across Brian Page, who was doing rent-to-rent Airbnb. And I started scaling that. Took that to 6 figures first. And then
Airbnb space?
Airbnb.
Yeah, cool. Let's talk about that a little bit then. So that was in the same area, East Melbourne?
No, I was focusing on studio apartments in the CBD. And what I was trying to do was I'd reach out to people online, and I'd just be like, "Hey, I'll take the place," but I didn't have any cash. I had no money. So I'd negotiated that I'd get into their place and I'd give them the rent they wanted plus a little bit extra. And I'd go in with just like, so the thing with me was I wasn't really good at putting together the presentation. You know what I mean? I can talk, which saved me, but I'd go in with just this little napkin scrawled in my pocket and try and pull it out and be like, "Here are the numbers. Like, this is why it's going to work," and did that.
And you got them across the line?
Yeah, I got one across the line, a guy who was managing like 4 or 5 of these studios, which started it. And then we started getting a few more of them and a few more of them. At the time, though, circumstantially, I was living in a shared accommodation, and the owner was in finance and gave me my first head lease because he didn't want to manage it anymore. And I fell into that position. So I was already sort of working in real estate, doing this rent to rent thing, the Airbnb stuff, and then I got this first head lease presented to me because he didn't want to manage it, and I was hell bent on just improving myself. So I was very responsible to the T. It was like a switch flicked in me, and I was just doing everything I could to get out of that darkness that I'd created for myself. So I was pushing really hard. Yeah, but we can talk about the Airbnb stuff or.
Yeah, I'm loving the story. There's elements of it which kind of connect back with mine as well. Like,
really,
like I say, we all get to that place where you just want to make a change, and we're motivated by the carrot or the stick, right? I used to think I was motivated by the carrot, but there was this fear of where I was at one stage. That still pushes me today because that stick is still whipping me saying, if you don't keep pushing, you're going to end up back in that place that you were before. So yeah,
Yeah, that's
into
right.
it. So let's talk about the Airbnbs then. So they were fully furnished when you took the head lease on them?
Uh, I think there was some furnishings in there.
So
Some
yeah,
furnishings in there. They
hustle
weren't
again to get some
fantastic.
cash to get their furniture in place as well.
Yeah, I remember going around to op shops and trying to get things that looked good. But I started right at the bottom there, just trying to pull it all together. Had the best that I could with my iPhone, just trying to get some photography, and
Yeah.
it worked. It worked really well. Um, yeah, so
Well done,
it's
mate.
pretty good.
And how many did you have there? You said you got it into a six-figure business.
Yeah, we had 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So when I say six-figure business, it was just yield.
Yeah.
A lot of what I talk about will be yield, but you can dig in for some of the other numbers.
Oh, so that's
Uh,
net profit, six figures.
no, yield. So just gross.
Oh,
That's
of
just
course. Yeah.
rental
Yeah.
income.
Gotcha.
Rental income from the Airbnbs.
Yeah.
A lot of it was going down to pay rent. We really didn't make much money there, but I saw a pathway there. I know that a lot of people are doing that in the States as well. So I was really excited by that. I remember seeing that ad, and it was yeah, it was something that I just grasped a little bit and just ran with.
It's the experience that you've got though from doing that, from going through it, even though you didn't make a great deal of money, the experience that you've gained by doing that has put you in the stead where you are today, right? So you've got the experience. You knew what a head lease was when the opportunity came up.
Yeah,
And yeah, that led you into rooming houses where you are today.
yeah. I've always been into arbitrage. I've always seen value in that. Like it's like if you can create some value somewhere. I remember when I was really young, I was 14 or 15 in school, and I'd get $2 coins or $1 coins from people at school, and go and get a packet of cigarettes, and then because I had this note. I went with my friend's mum one time, and since then I was able to just go in there and get the cigarettes, and then I basically it was like $6 or $8, so I'd collect these gold coins and go and sell 6 of them and then just make the difference, which would cover me. So I had the service, and I understood the value between markets. I understood it intuitively at a really young age.
Mm.
So I've looked for stuff like that. The business partner that I had done something similar with cans of Coke, like he'd just break it up and take it into school and sell it at the canteen for a slightly lower margin, which I really admired him for that. So I saw that he was similar to that as well.
So you've been hustling since a young age, mate.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
grew up really poor, and there was a lot of fights in my family around money. And I think that our traumas are the things we desperately want to heal first, and then we want to help other people with them. I think that for me, that's the meaning of life. You figure out where you've got a problem, you fix it for yourself, and then you turn around with your hand out and help others up. Um, and that's it's service, it's value. It's like I got so much value out of this, and it's something that I just use every day, and I live it, and I want to share that with you, you know. So
It's called the oxygen mask theory as well. So sort
mm,
yourself out first and help other people out to do it as well. But a lot of people try to fix everybody else when they've got shit themselves to fix, right? Or when they're
right,
not in a position to help, they try to help
yeah,
and waste so much time and energy when they're not really in a position to do so.
right, yeah. So I mean, again, it's the alchemy of trauma. It's like transforming that trauma that you had into your strength, into your service. So
Mm,
it's like if it was not having that money, or if it was that you were really overweight, or that you were, I don't know, struggling and stuck in some way, you sort of go through that journey yourself to get that practice, and then you can turn around and help others out with the same thing.
yeah.
I get a lot of value out of that.
Yeah, nice. So let's talk about the first rooming house that you did. So the opportunity came up for you to take a head lease on it. It was already
Yeah.
operational with tenants and furniture in place.
Yeah. So it wasn't the head lease for the rooming house. It wasn't a rooming house. It was a shared house.
Right.
I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't understand it. And it was operational. We had some problem tenants. They were getting kicked out. It was a 6-bedroom place, and I think I was renting it for about $400. And then I could rent each of the rooms out for 200, 250.
Beauty.
Yeah.
So for the,
And
for the listeners and for me as well, because I don't actually know this, what's the difference between a shared house and a rooming house in Victoria?
People will define shared houses as one or more rooms rented to four or more people. Anything above that is a rooming house. That's a definition as per Consumer Affairs Victoria.
Yep.
And a lot of the councils will stick to that. So if you've got the 3 rooms, 3 people, you're good. And if you've got if you get more than that, then it's going to be a rooming house and it's going to need to be registered. There's some talk of doing single lease stuff, but it's pretty tough. Like, for example, I got a client that I'm working with now, and he had a bungalow that was attached. So he had 3 bedrooms and then a bungalow outside. And technically they said it was okay, but not to put any other new ones in. This house that I was at initially, that first one, we had the council come through and they said it's not really okay, but it's okay, even though there's 6 people. And there was just conversations. Really, it was a conversation with the health department and telling them my vision, and she was just on board with it. She just liked me, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And then there was one other in Mount Waverley, and they said basically, if you can tell us you're not going to do it anymore in an email, then this one's fine. So it's not a scalable model.
Yeah.
It's not a scalable model, but yeah, it was enough at the time for me to say, hang on, there might be something here. And then started building it the wrong way initially, which was a huge pitfall. There was ambiguity to it. It was a little bit like a gray area. And that was affirmed to me because I'm not risk adverse when it comes to business. I'll have a crack. I'll have a couple of shots. You know what I mean? That served me, but I wish it was almost that it was really, really clear to me with those first couple that it wasn't going to fly. But it was just a lesson that I had to learn, setting these things up.
What were the problems with them first few then? Tell us more.
Problems with the first few. It was really more that those first few the council said were okay on that single lease. And then as I started to scale it, it became evident that it wasn't okay. And we had to backtrack. So it became just a scramble to go and convert a lot of these places. And we got it done. And it just
took rooming house.
Convert to rooming house. That's right. Yeah.
What's involved in that?
We need interconnected smoke alarms in every room. So your draftsman will take care of that stuff. We need those smoke alarms connected to emergency lights, so that when the smoke alarms go off, the emergency lights also go off. And it basically just lights a pathway out of the house. It also means if one of the tenants sets a fire in the kitchen, that all of the tenants are alerted. And the theory is that they won't go and knock on other doors if they don't know the people in them.
Yeah. There's
less of a community feeling in the spaces if they feel like they've just got their own space and they don't know anyone in room 3. They don't know if they're home. And they just don't have that rapport, Yeah.
But if it's a family and mum's downstairs cooking and she sets the kitchen on fire, she's going to go get the kids out the house, right? Which is why we need all them smoke alarms in a standard family home.
Yeah. So you guys do the smoke alarms anyway, right? In all the rooms.
Yeah.
Just as a precaution. I think I saw some content that you guys did there.
But you have to do a full 1B conversion for a rooming house, don't you? Where we don't have to do 1B in Western Australia.
Yeah. So I think it's enough to have just the smoke alarms in there. But I mean, if you want to do it properly, in terms of like ethics, if you have the smoke alarms in there, that's fine. I think that we got slapped with Kevin 07. He had a family member or someone related to him that couldn't get access to a B&B, like a bed and breakfast somewhere. This is before Airbnb. And he did a little test around to find out if any other industries would like get affected if he put this mandatory conversion on these types of dwellings. And they didn't look very far, and rooming houses copped it in Victoria. So that's just what it is. It's just sort of been stuck. So common sense doesn't really guide it. It's more that they need something to put a blanket over a plethora of different situations, and people sort of just have to stay within that.
Yeah.
But it's different from state to state and different countries as well. Like I'm sure that everyone's got their regulations. The same as Airbnb, It's like you can do it, but you're gonna have to know what your local government wants.
Yeah. So you've got the fire alarms going in, the interconnected smoke alarms, the emergency lighting, the lever exit handle on the front door, and fire extinguisher in the common areas. Is that what you do?
Fire blanket, fire extinguishers.
Yeah. Signs on the back
That's
of
it.
the doors saying you are here and this is how you get out of the house.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what
That's
about universal access? Do you need universal access in a conversion, or is that just in the new builds?
no. So universal access isn't something we do. We get a dispensation around the universal access. Basically, that means that instead of spending 80 grand on ramps, widened hallways, disabled bathrooms on an old 1960s dwelling, that you can actually get this dispensation. And essentially what it is that this property is of X age and it's unreasonable for us to go in and spend 80 grand on it. We do the conversions for like 18 to 21 grand, just depends on what sort of stuff you need. So you save 60 grand doing that, which is great. It's a much better way to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how many rent to rents have you brought to the market so far in Victoria?
I think it's about 15.
15.
So yeah. So we did the rent to rents on our own. I after 2020, at 2020, the Airbnb stuff stopped working, obviously. We had people from the UK and people from different areas who were staying in our Airbnbs in the city that were just messaging us and just saying, we've got to go. And it was a similar conversation with our agent. They were like, obviously it's not going to work for you guys. And everyone was sort of just scrambling to make it work. And I thought it was a good time to go in and start taking up leases because there were a lot of empty properties and agents were willing to work with me. So I started going in and taking. I had my first one. And then I started getting a few more of them in that period. And that's when I took the rooming house thing through to 6 figures and then through to 7 figures in 2023. The year of 2023, we did 7 figures in rental yield, and it was about 500 grand or 600 grand in net profit off those things, which was fantastic.
Well done.
Yeah. I had that business partnership dissolved mid 2024, which is a story for another day. But basically at that point, I'd started selling down some of these rent to rents. They do it a lot in the UK. I haven't never seen anyone do it here, where basically you'd negotiate. And since then, I've sort of been doing it for clients where I'd negotiate a head lease on their behalf and then do the reno for them and give them the product that makes that 60 to 80 grand per year.
Yeah.
As sort of how some guys go and find option deals and stuff like that, and they'll be like, this has the potential for X.
Yep.
It's like that, except we'll actually do the job.
I've seen you advertise them on socials recently.
Yeah.
So you negotiate, put the package together, then you sell it to them for a fee. And then they make their money back in a couple of months. And then over
No.
in the terms
it's like a year and a half, something like that, that make the money back. So it's a 5-year lease, and then they'll put the cash down, and then instead of it paying itself down. So our rule of thumb for these rent to rents is that it pays itself down in the first 12 months.
Yeah. That's
what usually. Yeah. So we were getting a lot better at them. We were doing them for about 40 to 50 grand, and we were having ones that were making 80 grand.
Yeah.
In a year. So we'd sell it for 80 grand. And if they had management there, it would take them a year and a half to get their cash back.
Yeah.
So basically they'd pay us, we'd make the 30 or 40 grand. And then, it was a way to just flip. It was a way to flip property without ever having to purchase a property.
Nice.
So, I mean, you'd know that a lot of people listening would know that in real estate, you've usually got one of two problems. You either got cash or you've got cash flow. And usually you need more of one of those things. It's like if you thought in your mind for a second now, and the audience as well, if you guys sat and thought, what would I need more of now? And it's like, oh, it's obvious. I need more cash flow for serviceability, or I need another 40 grand or 80 grand for, going and making that purchase. Because I've got this cash flow, but it's not going to be there for another 2 years. So it put me in a position where I was able to generate chunks of cash as well as cash flow. And yeah, I'm doing 3 of them right now, and they'll be finished in February.
Yeah,
which is good. And I sold maybe 4 or 5 of them since leaving that business.
Beautiful.
And just sort of cashing in.
So for the clients getting into that deal, they're getting into a deal. So they might not have enough money for a deposit to buy a rooming house, but they can buy a lease in place for 5 years, which they make the money back in 12 to 18 months. And then the term of that 5 years, they're going to 3x, 4x the money.
Yeah. Yeah. So we usually, if the thing was full, it would look like a 70% cash on cash return per annum. And that's because they've got to pay down that first year or year and a bit, a year and a half, something like that. The numbers start changing when you have management in, and the numbers will also change with occupancy. But it can still, like a lot of people who look at deals, they will see 20%, and that's pretty amazing. If you're doing this project, you're going to be able to refinance at 20, 30%. That's a good deal. A lot of people out there are building stuff now, and they're trying to hit 7%, 10%, and I think that that's a pretty cracking project. So if you can do one of these things, and you're going to park your cash there and generate an income, it can be a real game changer. For me, it meant that I was able to get out of that work, right, and to create a wage almost straight away, and it was like a godsend coming to me, because what I could do is just have that work taken care of, or have that time back, and then focus on what I wanted to be doing, to truly ask myself what I wanted to be doing. And that's the beauty of HMOs and rooming houses, because if you can replace your income and ask yourself what you'd like to spend your time doing, you're a lot freer than than you might ever have been before. And that's an awesome thing to have. It's an awesome tool.
Yeah. Cash flow equals time, right? And just thinking back to what you said there, like you need a goose that lays golden eggs, and you live off the golden eggs, right? We don't want to slay the goose. And so many people focus purely on capital growth and leverage into the next deal to build a portfolio, but then they need to start selling down, and they've got chunks of cash, and eventually chunks of cash run out, because Australia is an expensive place to live, right?
Yeah.
So if you can put that cash into a deal, that cash flows, build it up to where we got to. We got to $110,000 a year in 2019 when I quit my job, a little bit higher now. But it gives you time that you were allocating to somebody else at some stage in your life. And when you got an extra 8 or 9 hours a day, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I think so. I think that a lot of people, like there are some people that get a lot of their purpose outside of work. You know what I mean? They're happy enough spending time with the family on the weekends. That's plenty for them. Or they have their sports that they focus on. But even in that situation, getting into a position where you can focus fully on that stuff and take your hours dramatically down to just what you want to be doing is awesome. And usually, in my estimation, it would be that you want to spend like 2 months on the beach somewhere, and then you get sunburnt and sick of that, and you want to go and start doing some other work.
Yeah.
Like I don't really believe in retirement. I think that people should keep working, and I love the idea of that. But even just having those few months break, you get to sort of realign with what you want to be doing, who you want to be helping, and where you want to be headed.
Well done, mate. Journey sounds incredible so far. I'm excited to see where it goes over. How long have you been doing it? So how long have you been in the rooming house?
2018, I got the first lease. I got that head lease there.
That's 7 years. So where's the next 7 years going to take you?
I want to do coaching. I want to help people. I want to offer people the same opportunity. I want to help people if they are in a job where they're not fully aligned, or if, to have that mortgage repayment taken care of by just doing one of these rent-to-rent deals, that they have the opportunity to do that, because I can think of like my sister, for example. She's got a mortgage now, and for her to set up one of these things would be an absolute game changer. An extra 60 grand just covering that. It absolutely, it changes the whole trajectory of where you're headed in your life, because and at the very least, it can take that burden of stress away from you, and maybe you can buy back some years just because of that. Even if you just kept working and things like that. So I want to find people who really aren't aligned in their current job, or they can see a pathway somewhere else, but they're just stuck. There's a point where it's really clear that you don't want to be doing what you've been doing, and that you can see the pathway forward outside of that, but you don't have the tools to get it done. You don't have the skills to be able to get that done. I want to help those people.
Beautiful. And that's
Yeah.
so you're going to become a coach in this space and help people put rent to rent together.
Put rent to rents together. That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what will that look like? You'll teach them how to find deals, negotiate on deals, set them up, and then
Yeah.
finance them as well if they need cash to put furniture in and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be basically, I don't know about financing them. It will be more so that I just give them the skills to be able to go in, identify a deal, negotiate it with an agent, take it on. Any JVs that you could put together, say if you did a deal with one of the owners or something like that, to get
Yep.
your foot in the door, even if you've got no cash, to get your foot in the door. I've done projects like that. Or if you've just got a little bit, to figure out how to put that together to get your foot in the door. And then all the way through to management. So as you would know, management in these sorts of spaces is a different beast. You need to put a lot of time and energy into it, and putting those systems together and getting it right so that it works well is something that I've done, because scaling the rent to rent model, essentially what you become is like glorified real estate agents.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you manage all your own properties? Have you got a property
Yeah.
manager? You manage
Now
it.
manage them all. In the last company, we had a property manager, and I've got one now, but I mean, for years I had, and they're on staff as well, So I tried to work with some property management companies, but it just didn't make the cut. The systems were born out of how they could put together property management as a service, rather than how to fill rooms fast in COVID-19. Like there was a paradigm shift um, that needed to happen there. And there's an urgency about rent to rents. There's an urgency about them. So you need the right systems to be able to go in and make sure these things get full and stay full, and that they're managed well.
Yeah. So what's the demographic that you're attracting in the rooms that you bring to the market? Do you have a demographic, or is it the same as us? Like you can't really put your finger on it and can be
Yeah.
from an 18-year-old to a 74-year-old.
Yeah. So the market always decides, but if you know how to speak to the market, then you can sort of you can set them up where the conversation the market's already having. So if you chose a certain suburb, you can say, I know this place. I went in, I spoke to the market earlier, and they've said they're going to bring you this sort of client. Like, who they're going to bring to you. In rent to rent, you can go into blue chip areas of demand, because you don't have to pay $2 million for a property in, St Kilda, or $3 million or whatever it is. You can just take the lease. So putting these in these blue chip areas where you can sort of guess the demographics is going to be helpful, because you can sort of choose your market. Outside of that, the price point will also choose the demographic. So if I go and put one of these next to a university, like in Burwood, I don't know if you know Victoria well, but
Not
Burwood,
very well, mate. Bits of it, not too much though.
yeah. So Burwood's got a lot of students. You're going to get students there. They're going to be like Asian students who are coming from India, or China, or that sort of thing. And you're going to need higher levels of systems in terms of cleanliness. Like a lot of them, it's the first time out of home, and they're gonna need a cleaner to come by weekly, and they're going to need pretty clear rules around who's taking bins out and stuff like that. If you dump the prices and go into more of the outskirts area, you're going to get a lower socio demographic. And then if you have a relatively high price in areas that aren't close to amenities like universities, it's going to be local market. You'll get some students, but generally local market.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Is there any plans to actually buy any and own them yourself, or are they all going to be rent to rents?
I will start buying them. Right. I mean, I love business a lot, and
Yeah.
I spend a lot of my time building businesses. I've done that. I get a lot of joy out of it.
Addictive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. It's a lot of fun. And like on my lunch break today, I sat on the couch here and I was eating my, my frozen workout meal. And I was watching business stories, like what happened to Blockbuster, like what went wrong with this skate brand in, the 90s. So I love that stuff. And so to answer your question, yes, but right now I'd be happy, putting 70 grand into like an ad spend to try and find new clients. And I'd rather hire an editor, and I'd rather hire staff that are going to take, like, I'd buy back my time. So I was like, I've got this blueprint of how things are going to go in terms of this coaching. And I've got all these ideas. So I'll jot those down and then create roles and then just try and hire them out.
Yeah.
So I'd rather spend time there. But yeah, I'll buy them up, properties, but I don't know. I have a lot of fun with what I do. I really enjoy it,
and move the profit into the portfolio later.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be smart for me to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how do people find Vincent then if they're interested in coaching, or they're interested in the rent-to-rent deals that you put together? How can people find you? And you share your details now. We'll stick them all in the show notes of the podcast too, so people can find you easy.
Let me check my Instagram here. You guys can go and find me on Instagram.
Is that your favorite social media channel, Instagram?
It's all right. I think it's pretty good. Vincent Holthaus or Vincent James Holthaus. Both of those you'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that stuff. I'm hoping to just scale it out on those things. So I think that's where you need to be these days. I think that's where you can reach people.
Yeah, absolutely.
The internet,
Yeah, absolutely. Vincent, I've enjoyed the chat, mate. It's been good catching up, hearing all about the journey. Definitely some similarities between mine and yours, put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much for your time, mate, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you can stay up to date with all cash flow positive property updates.